I never thought agreeing to marriage counseling would destroy my life, until I realized my husband's therapist was actually his ex-girlfriend. Sounds fake, right? Like something out of a bad soap opera. I wish it was. My name, Emily. I'm 31, and until a few months ago, I honestly thought my life was pretty decent. Not Pinterest perfect or anything, but good enough to make me feel secure. I worked from home as a freelance graphic designer. Jason, my husband, worked long hours at a local finance firm. We had our little routines. Sunday morning pancakes, a standing Friday pizza night, lazy Saturdays spent binge-watching random shows on Netflix. Our townhouse wasn't huge, but it was ours. 2 bedrooms, a tiny backyard where I tried and failed to grow tomatoes every summer, a slightly crooked mailbox Jason kept promising to fix but never did. We had a cat, Juniper, who was way too obsessed with chewing our charging cables. It was the kind of life that felt cozy and predictable, until the little cracks started showing. The first signs were so subtle, I almost missed them. Jason started staying later at work. At first, it made sense, end-of-quarter reports, big clients needing extra hand-holding, whatever. But it kept happening. And it wasn't just the hours, it was him. The way he'd come home exhausted but wired, barely kissing me hello, staring at his phone during dinner, zoning out when I talked about my day. I tried bringing it up once, gently, while we were sitting on the couch after dinner. "You've been kind of distant lately," I said, picking at a loose thread on my sweatshirt. He barely looked up from his phone. "Work's just stressful, Em, it's not you." Maybe it wasn't me, I told myself. Maybe I was being clingy, needy. Maybe all marriages hit a rough patch around the 5-year mark. Still, the knot in my stomach wouldn't go away. It didn't help that when we did spend time together, it felt forced. Like we were actors playing a couple in a low-budget indie movie. We'd sit across from each other at our favorite Italian place, swirling spaghetti around our forks in awkward silence, both pretending everything was fine. Spoiler, it was. Then, one random Tuesday night, he brought up therapy. We were brushing our teeth side by side, the mirror fogging up from the shower I'd just taken, when he said, casually, like he was commenting on the weather, "Maybe we should see someone." I blinked, toothpaste dripping onto the sink. "See someone," I repeated. "A therapist, you know, like couples counseling." For a second, I just stared at him, mouth half full of foam. I should have felt relieved, hopeful even. It meant he cared enough to try, right? But instead, I felt this weird prickle at the back of my neck. Why now? Why suggest it so out of the blue? Still, I nodded. "Yeah, okay, maybe that's a good idea." He smiled, a tight, strained smile, and spat into the sink. "I already found someone. She comes highly recommended." Already found someone. Already scheduled us an appointment. Already made the decision, without even discussing it with me. Another red flag I ignored. The day of our first session, I was a nervous wreck. I spent an hour trying to pick the perfect outfit, something that said I'm taking this seriously, but also I'm totally relaxed and emotionally stable. I settled on a soft gray sweater and jeans, minimal makeup, hair in a loose braid. Jason wore his usual work clothes, slacks, button-down, sleeves rolled to the elbows. He looked so put together, so confident, while I felt like a mess inside. The therapy office was in this sleek building downtown, all glass walls and modern art sculptures that looked like melting spoons. We sat in the waiting room, surrounded by potted plants and copies of Psychology Today, the silence between us loud and awkward. Jason tapped his foot rhythmically against the leg of his chair, scrolling through his phone. I tried to focus on breathing. Inhale, exhale. Don't overthink it, don't make it worse than it is. Then the door opened, and she walked out. Tall, blonde, icy blue eyes. Wearing a soft blue blouse tucked into a perfectly tailored skirt. Every hair in place, makeup flawless but subtle. If Barbie went to grad school, she'd look like this woman. "Emily, Jason, come on in," she said, flashing a warm, professional smile. Her name was Dr. Lauren Miller. And the second I saw the way her eyes lingered on Jason, just a beat too long, I felt a shiver run down my spine. But again, I told myself I was being ridiculous. Suspicious, jealous for no reason. After all, therapists are supposed to be warm and attentive, right? Especially toward the patient who's clearly more closed off, more resistant. Which in our case was Jason, right? We sat down on a soft gray couch while Dr. Lauren perched in an armchair across from us, clipboard balanced neatly on her lap. "Tell me what brings you both here today," she said, voice smooth like honey. I opened my mouth to speak, but Jason beat me to it. "I guess we're struggling with communication," he said, his eyes flicking briefly to mine. "Like we're not connecting the way we used to." "Good," Lauren said brightly, like he'd answered a quiz question correctly. "Recognizing the problem is the first step." I bit the inside of my cheek. Good. It didn't feel good. It felt like I was being judged already. The session went on like that. Jason painting himself as the reasonable, exhausted husband just trying to make things work, while I came off like the nagging, emotional wife with impossible expectations. Every time I tried to explain how lonely I felt, Lauren would tilt her head sympathetically, and then pivot the conversation back to what I could be doing better. "Sometimes when we feel abandoned," she said sweetly, "it's really about our own fears of inadequacy, not the other person's behavior." Jason nodded like she'd just handed him the Holy Grail. I sat there, stunned into silence, my throat burning with unshed tears. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe if I were less needy, less emotional, less me, Jason would want to come home earlier. Maybe we wouldn't need therapy at all. The session ended with Lauren assigning us homework. We were supposed to write down 3 things we appreciated about each other and share them at dinner. Jason immediately agreed. I forced a smile and nodded too. As we left, Jason looked lighter, almost smug. Meanwhile, I felt like I'd been emotionally mugged. And deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Something about Dr. Lauren's perfectly rehearsed concern. Something about the way she laughed at Jason's dumb jokes, like he was the funniest guy alive. But the worst part, I still had no idea just how wrong everything was about to get. If I could go back and slap some sense into myself, I would. Because instead of trusting my gut, I convinced myself to give Dr. Lauren a fair shot. I mean, Jason seemed happier after each session. More relaxed, more affectionate even. For the first time in months, he actually suggested we go out for dinner without me begging for it. Wasn't that a good sign? So what if I felt uneasy every time Dr. Lauren flashed that polished, toothpaste commercial smile? So what if she leaned a little too close when Jason was speaking, or laughed a little too loud at his stupid finance jokes? It was therapy. It was supposed to feel uncomfortable sometimes. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. The second session started off okay. Dr. Lauren asked us to share our 3 things we appreciate about each other. Jason went first. "I appreciate how Emily always takes care of things at home," he said, shooting me a sideways smile. "And how she always remembers to buy my favorite snacks, and, I guess, her loyalty." Loyalty. The way he said it made my stomach clench, but I smiled anyway. It was better than nothing, right? I cleared my throat and read off my list. "I appreciate how hard Jason works, how he makes me laugh even when I'm stressed, and how he always supports my crazy dreams even when they're impractical." Lauren nodded approvingly, jotting something down on her clipboard. "Good," she said. "You both clearly value each other. That's a strong foundation." For a moment, I actually felt hopeful. Maybe we could fix this. Maybe this awkward, painful process would lead us back to each other. But then Lauren steered the conversation into murkier waters. "Emily, you mentioned feeling lonely in your marriage," she said, tilting her head sympathetically. Can you tell me more about that? I hesitated, wringing my hands in my lap. Well, sometimes it feels like Jason isn't really here even when he's home, I said carefully. Like he's a million miles away, thinking about something else, or someone else. Jason stiffened beside me. Lauren leaned forward slightly, her pen poised. That's a heavy accusation, she said gently. Jason, how does it feel to hear that? He scoffed, running a hand through his hair. It's exhausting, he said. No matter what I do, it's never enough. She's always looking for something to be upset about. My chest tightened. That's not fair, I said, my voice trembling. I'm not, I just want to feel connected again. Lauren smiled, but it wasn't comforting. It was the kind of smile you give someone right before you tell them bad news. Emily, she said softly, sometimes when we focus too much on what's missing, we create self-fulfilling prophecies. Have you considered that your fear of abandonment might be causing you to push Jason away? My mouth dropped open slightly. I wanted to argue, to scream. But Jason was nodding along, soaking it up like gospel. And deep down, a small, ugly voice whispered, maybe she's right. Maybe I was too nitty, too emotional. Maybe if I were just a little more chill, Jason wouldn't feel so distant. The session ended with Jason walking out looking smug and victorious, while I felt like someone had wrung me out like a dirty dish rag. Driving home, Jason was practically bouncing in his seat. See, this is why therapy is good for us, he said, flashing me a grin. We're finally getting to the root of things. I forced a tight smile, my fingers white-knuckling the steering wheel. Yeah, I said. Great. That night, I lay awake long after Jason started snoring beside me. I stared at the ceiling, Juniper curled up on my chest, her purring vibrating through my bones. Something didn't add up. Why did Lauren always seem so quick to defend Jason? Why did she never question his behavior the way she questioned mine? Why did her voice sound so weirdly familiar sometimes? I brushed it off again. Paranoia, insecurity, whatever. But the next day, everything changed. Jason left his laptop open on the kitchen counter while he went to take a shower. Normally, I respected his privacy. But a notification popped up in the corner of the screen, an email from someone named Lauren. At first, I didn't think anything of it. Probably just therapy-related, right? But then I saw the subject line. Miss last night already. My heart froze. Hands shaking, I clicked on it. The email was short, but it might as well have been a dagger straight to my gut. Hey, Jay. Last night was amazing. I can't believe we're finally doing this. Miss you already. XOL. I stared at the screen, my mouth going dry. No. This couldn't be happening. I scrolled through the thread, heart pounding so loudly I thought I might pass out. There were dozens of messages. Some flirtatious, some downright filthy. And there, nestled between all the disgusting love notes, was the truth. Lauren wasn't just some random therapist Jason found online. She was his ex. His serious ex, the one he dated all through college. The one he never talked about, except to say it ended badly. Apparently, not badly enough. Because here they were, reconnecting under the guise of therapy, manipulating me into believing I was the problem while they carried on their little affair. I staggered back from the laptop like it had burned me. My vision blurred with tears. My whole body was shaking. Jason's footsteps thudded down the hallway, and I slammed the laptop shut, heart hammering against my ribs. I couldn't let him know I knew. Not yet. I needed a plan. Because if Jason thought he could gaslight me into thinking I was crazy, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed next to Jason, listening to the sound of his breathing. Slow, even peaceful. How dare he sleep like a baby, while I lay there drowning in betrayal? Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face. Lauren's perfect hair, her rehearsed smile, her eyes sparkling every time she twisted my words like a knife in my back. I kept replaying their emails in my head, over and over. Miss you already. I can't believe we're finally doing this. Doing what exactly? Cheating, lying, gaslighting me while pretending to fix our marriage. My fists clenched beneath the covers. At 3:17 a.m., I got up quietly, careful not to wake him. I walked barefoot into the kitchen, sat down at the table, and opened his laptop again. If I was going to confront him, I needed more than one email. I needed the whole picture. What I found still makes my skin crawl. Their correspondence had started 3 months ago, around the time Jason and I had our biggest fight, the one that ended with me crying on the kitchen floor and him storming out for a walk. Turns out he didn't go for a walk. He emailed her that night. Subject line, long time no see. I read every disgusting message. Every pet name, every therapy session they laughed about, every time they talked about how manipulative I was. One thread even had an attached selfie of the two of them, Jason with his arm around her, both of them grinning like teenagers. In another message, Lauren had written, "Don't worry, babe. The more she talks, the crazier she looks. You just keep playing the calm husband, and I'll steer the narrative. We'll get through this and out the other side." Narrative. I was a narrative to them. Some pathetic character in their twisted little play. I slammed the laptop shut, my hands trembling so violently I thought I'd throw up. I wanted to confront him, right then. Scream, cry, pack my bags, throw his stuff on the lawn, burn his favorite hoodie. But something stopped me. Not fear, not love. Strategy. Because suddenly, I didn't want revenge. I wanted justice. And justice required patience. The next morning, I made coffee like nothing was wrong. I kissed him on the cheek when he left for work. I even texted him a heart emoji at noon, like the stupid doting wife I was supposed to be. And while he thought I was home doing laundry or working on logo revisions for my clients, I was building a digital war chest. Screenshots, emails, photos. I sent them all to my private Gmail. Then I printed the worst ones, just in case. I even looked up Oregon's licensing board for therapists. Turns out, therapists aren't supposed to sleep with their married clients while treating their wives. Who knew? But as much as I wanted to report her immediately, I needed more. I needed proof that this wasn't just unethical, it was premeditated. So I went to the next session. I walked in there, sat on that awful gray couch, smiled at Lauren like she hadn't stabbed me in the back, and told her I was feeling better. She beamed at me. "I can tell," she said sweetly, crossing her legs. "You seem much more grounded today." Jason nodded. "Yeah, she's been great lately." I almost laughed. You know that feeling when you're so angry, so betrayed, that you actually go numb? That was me. I sat there for the whole session, nodding along, pretending to accept her stupid homework assignments, all while thinking, "You have no idea I know." That night, I called my best friend, Amanda. Now, Amanda and I have been friends since middle school. She's loud, brutally honest, and exactly the kind of person you want in your corner when your life blows up. I told her everything. At first, she didn't believe me. "Wait, the therapist is his ex," she shrieked through the phone. Like, the college one with the nose ring and the fake British accent. "Yup," I said grimly. Holy *T. I told her about the emails, the messages, the plan to paint me as unstable. Amanda went full FBI mode. "We're taking this *TCH down," she said. "Let's start a podcast." I laughed, but she wasn't kidding. "I'm serious," she said. "You want people to hear what happened, right? You want her exposed." I hesitated. Part of me still felt ashamed. Like I'd let this happen, like I'd been blind, weak, gullible. But Amanda wasn't having it. "You didn't let anything happen," she snapped. "They're predators. They exploited your vulnerability. You have a voice. Use it." And that's when it hit me. I did have a voice, a story, and a digital folder of receipts. The next day, I created a new Instagram account under the name The Other Wife. No face, no real names. Just the story, my story told in pieces. I uploaded screenshots with the names blurred and told followers to stay tuned for the full podcast. People started following faster than I expected. Women messaged me with their own horror stories, affairs, toxic therapy, emotional manipulation. It was like opening a floodgate. And just like that, I didn't feel so alone anymore. But I still hadn't confronted Jason. Not directly. Because I wasn't done building my case. Not yet. The first episode of my podcast dropped on a Thursday morning. I called it The Therapist Slept with My Husband. Blunt, raw, impossible to ignore. I recorded it alone in my closet, surrounded by coats and winter boots to muffle the echo. My voice shook at first, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. I told the story from the beginning. How Jason and I met, how we grew apart, how therapy became a weapon. I didn't name names, but I described everything in enough detail for the right people to know exactly who I was talking about. I read parts of their emails. I described how it felt to be gaslit in a therapist's office, while the woman screwing my husband took notes and smiled politely. I ended with, "If you're listening to this and wondering whether you're crazy for trusting someone who turned out to be a snake, you're not. And you're not alone." The episode was 31 minutes long. Within 6 hours, it had over 12,000 plays. Amanda called me screaming, "You're going viral, bitch. Everyone's talking about this." I opened my DMs and almost cried. Hundreds of messages. Women, men, people who had lived through the same hell. Some even recognized Lauren. Apparently, I wasn't the only wife she'd therapized out of a marriage. One message hit me the hardest. "I think your therapist is the same woman who convinced my husband to leave me. She said I was emotionally manipulative, too. Turns out, she was sleeping with him behind my back. You're not alone." I sat there in stunned silence, heart pounding. It was a pattern. This wasn't just my story, it was a blueprint. And suddenly, I had a mission. Meanwhile, at home, Jason was completely oblivious. He didn't know about the podcast, not yet. He thought everything was back to normal. Our dinners were civil, I wasn't asking too many questions, and I even pretended to take their homework seriously. Little did he know, I was prepping for war behind the scenes. 3 days after the podcast dropped, Amanda helped me put together a mini website. Just a single page with a summary of the story and links to therapist licensing violations. We didn't use Lauren's name, but we didn't need to. People knew. That night, Jason walked into the kitchen while I was uploading the second episode. He kissed me on the cheek and grabbed a beer from the fridge. "You seem lighter lately," he said, cracking the can open. "Do I?" I replied without looking up. "Yeah, it's nice." I smiled all teeth. Jason had no idea I was currently narrating a segment called Gaslighting 101, How My Therapist Helped My Husband Rewrite Our Marriage. I posted it at 7:45 p.m. At 8:22 p.m., Lauren called Jason. I heard him answer in the hallway. "Hey babe," he said, his voice dropping to a hush. "Yeah, I saw. It's insane. I have no idea who it could be." Pause. I mean, obviously it's someone with an axe to grind, but yeah. Yeah, the emails look familiar, but no one would recognize those exact words, right? Another pause. "You're sure your board won't care? I mean, it's anonymous, right? She didn't name you." "Oh, sweetie. You wish." The next day, I received a message from a local journalist. She ran a podcast segment about unethical therapy practices and wanted to feature my story, anonymously, if I preferred. I said yes. Of course I did. That episode aired on a Monday. By Wednesday, Lauren's clinic had shut down its website. Her Instagram went private. And Jason finally put the pieces together. He came home early from work, his face pale and tight. "Emily," he said, shutting the front door behind him, "we need to talk." I was sitting at the kitchen island, sipping tea. "Sure," I said casually, "what's up?" He looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. "Did you start a podcast?" I blinked. "Why would you ask that?" "Because," he ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "Because everyone at work is talking about it. Someone recognized Lauren's voice from a voicemail in one of the episodes." I tilted my head. "Weird." "Emily," he snapped, "don't play games with me. Did you do this?" I met his eyes and set down my mug. "You mean, did I tell the world how my husband and his therapist girlfriend manipulated me into thinking I was mentally unstable while they carried on an affair in plain sight?" He flinched. "You framed us, you made it sound." "Oh no," I cut him off. "I didn't frame you, I quoted you." I pulled my phone from my pocket and tapped to open one of the saved screenshots. "The more she talks, the crazier she looks. Ring any bells?" Jason's jaw tightened. "I could lose everything," he whispered. "Should have thought of that before you let your ex play therapist with your wife," I said coldly. He looked at me for a long time, guilt panic, something almost like regret flickering in his eyes. Then he turned and walked out. That was the last time he ever slept in our house. The fallout was swift. Lauren's license was officially suspended pending investigation. Jason's firm quietly let him go for unrelated reasons. My podcast, it blew up. Hundreds of thousands of downloads. Sponsorship offers. An agent reaching out to ask if I'd consider turning it into a book. But more than that, I had women writing to me daily, thanking me for telling their story too. And slowly, through the chaos, I started feeling something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. You know that moment after the storm passes. When the adrenaline fades, the sky clears, and you're left staring at the wreckage you created, wondering if you went too far. That was me. Sitting alone on my porch at 2 a.m., wrapped in a blanket, staring into the dark like I was waiting for something to answer back. Jason was gone. Lauren's practice was dead. Their reputations absolutely torched. And me. I was suddenly free. And also deeply, horribly alone. It's funny, when you spend months, even years, trapped in someone else's narrative, the silence afterward feels deafening. Like you're not even sure how to be a person anymore without their voice in your head. I deleted our shared calendar. Donated his favorite mug to Goodwill. Blocked his number. But grief still came knocking, unexpected and vicious. One morning, I caught myself pouring 2 cups of coffee like I used to, and I just stood there in my robe, staring at the second mug like it was haunted. Juniper rubbed against my legs, purring like she could feel the sadness radiating off me. I wasn't crying every night. Not anymore. But the grief hit in weirder ways now. Like standing in the grocery aisle and realizing I didn't have to buy his stupid protein bars anymore. Or folding laundry and finding one of his socks tangled in my sheets, like some ghostly little reminder. Amanda tried to cheer me up. She took me to brunch, dragged me to a pottery class, even tried to set me up with some guy she met at the dog park. "He's a vet," she said, "like with actual animals, not war trauma, and he's cute." I tried, I really did. But every time I laughed, it felt like I was borrowing someone else's happiness. Like I didn't quite belong in this new version of my life yet. Then came the call from my mom. I hadn't told her everything. I gave her the PG-13 version. We'd split, things got messy, I was finding myself again. But apparently, my Aunt Deb had found my podcast. "Emily Jean Walker," Mom hissed into the phone. "Is this really how you want to air your dirty laundry, on the internet, for the world to hear?" I sighed, pressing my forehead to the cool tile of the kitchen wall. "Hi, Mom, I'm fine, thanks for asking." She didn't laugh. I just think you're opening yourself up to judgment, she said. And what if you want to get back together with him someday? Or, God forbid, what if his mother hears about this? She should hear about it, I snapped. She raised a man who thought cheating on his wife with a therapist was acceptable behavior. There was a long pause on the line. Well, she finally said, we all make mistakes. I didn't make a mistake, I said coldly. I made a statement. I hung up before she could respond. That night, I cried harder than I had since Jason left. Because for the first time, I realized that even after everything I'd done, after all the exposing, all the truth-telling, I still wasn't believed by the people who were supposed to believe me the most. I thought about quitting the podcast. I had 5 episodes up, each one more personal than the last. The numbers were climbing, people were listening, commenting, sharing. But suddenly I felt naked, exposed. Like I'd handed over every intimate piece of my life to strangers, while the people in my actual life recoiled. I stopped posting for 2 weeks. No new episodes. No cryptic Instagram captions. No sassy quotes about healing. I just disappeared. And people noticed. The DMs started piling up. Are you okay? Please don't stop, your voice matters. I finally had the courage to leave my toxic relationship because of you. Please come back. One message stood out. It was from a woman named Kara. She wrote, my husband's therapist told him I was emotionally reactive. She encouraged him to stop catering to my insecurities and to assert his independence. 2 weeks later, he left me for her. I thought I was crazy until I found your podcast. You gave me language for what I couldn't explain. Thank you. I read it 3 times. And then I cried again, but for a different reason. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about us. Every woman who'd been manipulated into silence. Every person gaslit by someone with a degree and a clipboard. Every partner made to feel like their pain was a symptom of their instability. Lauren had tried to write me off as the problem. Jason had backed her narrative. My own mother thought I should have stayed quiet. But Kara, Amanda, the thousands of strangers who tuned in every week, they knew better. So I sat down at my desk, plugged in my mic, and hit record. Hey guys, I said softly, it's been a minute, I've been dealing. I paused, took a breath. But I want to talk about what comes after the explosion, after the truth is out, after the emails and the crying and the confrontation and the applause. Another pause. Because nobody tells you that healing is the quiet part, that it's boring and lonely and terrifying in a way that drama never is, but also, somehow, more real. I posted it without editing. No music, no sponsor, just raw, unfiltered truth. It became my most shared episode yet. And just like that, I came back to life. 6 months after I uploaded that first episode, I was invited to speak at a mental health conference in San Diego. May, the woman who used to cry into a pillow so her husband wouldn't hear. The woman who once doubted her own sanity because someone with a clipboard told her she was too emotional. I stood backstage in a borrowed blazer and flats that pinched my toes, palms sweating, stomach twisting. I kept thinking, what if I'm not qualified to be here? What if someone calls me out as a fraud? But when I stepped on stage and looked out at the audience, hundreds of faces, mostly women, I realized something. They didn't need a therapist. They needed truth. So I told them mine. I didn't sugarcoat it. I didn't pretend to be wise or healed or endlessly brave. I told them about the emails, the gaslighting, the therapist with the manicured hands and the perfect smile, the nights I lay awake wondering if I had lost my mind. And then I told them about the moment I realized I hadn't. About the first time I pressed record. About the woman who messaged me and said, "You gave me the words I needed to leave." And when I finished, they stood. All of them clapping, cheering. For me, I almost collapsed backstage, sobbing into Amanda's shoulder. We went out for tacos after, sitting on a patio under fairy lights, eating greasy carnitas and laughing so hard we cried again. It was the first time in years I felt like I'd earned my joy. A few weeks later, something strange happened. I got an email from Jason. The subject line was, "No drama, just honesty." I almost deleted it. But curiosity got the better of me. It said, "Hey Em, I know I don't deserve a response. I wouldn't blame you for hatting me forever, but I wanted you to know something. I listened to the podcast, all of it. I was ashamed at first, then angry, then devastated, because you weren't just telling the story, you were telling the truth. I let her manipulate me, yes, but I let myself become that version of a man who could look into his wife's eyes and still lie. And you were right. I needed to hear it from someone else to finally get it. I'm in therapy now, real therapy, solo, and it sucks, but it's helping. You don't owe me forgiveness, but I wanted to say thank you. For the truth. And for setting me free, too, even if I didn't deserve it. I read it twice. Then I archived it. No reply. Because closure isn't always a conversation. Sometimes it's the silence that follows. A few months after that, Lauren officially lost her license. Apparently, mine wasn't the only complaint. The licensing board's final report listed 3 other women whose stories mirrored mine so closely it made my skin crawl. She appealed, she lost. Last I heard, she moved to Arizona and was trying to rebrand as a life coach. I almost laughed. But I didn't waste another thought on her. Because something better had happened. My little podcast, the one I started in my closet, whispering into a $50 microphone, was now being taught in a university class on media ethics and digital activism. We even got signed by a small production studio to turn it into a limited docuseries. Amanda and I flew to New York to meet the team. I wore sneakers on the plane and spilled coffee on my jeans, and I didn't care. Because for once, I was living a life that was fully, unapologetically mine. I got my own apartment, a bright studio with too many windows and a radiator that makes weird noises at night. I painted the walls a soft sage green. I adopted a second cat. Juniper was pissed, but she's adjusting. I take long walks now. I sit in cafes without checking my phone every 10 seconds. I read poetry again. I laugh with strangers. Sometimes I think about the version of me from a year ago. The one who blamed herself. Who sat in that beige therapist's office and tried to be better for someone who had already stopped loving her. I want to reach back and hug her. Tell her you're not crazy, you're just waking up. And I guess that's the moral, if you're looking for one. We think healing comes from someone giving us answers. A therapist, a partner, a parent, a guru. But sometimes, healing starts when we stop asking for permission to feel what we already know. And when we stop being afraid to tell the story out loud. Because here's what I've learned. Some people will always paint you as the villain in their story, especially when your truth threatens the version they've built for themselves. Let them. Because when you finally write your own story, in your own words, on your own terms, you don't just survive the betrayal. You rewrite the ending. And mine is just getting started. Subscribe to my Mia's Stories YouTube channel for raw, emotional stories and authentic insights that encourage healing, growth, and understanding. Don't forget to be part of a supportive space where stories inspire and lessons resonate. What do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments. Your opinion truly matters to us, and we're here for you.